My ex-husband's new kids have been tormenting my 8-year-old daughter, and he's defending them, saying she just needs to toughen up. Sophie came home from her dad's house last Sunday with bruises on her arms. She said she fell off her bike, but Sophie didn't know how to lie yet. Her eyes darted left, and she kept touching her ear, the same tell she'd had since she was 3. I asked her again what had happened. She said Ethan and Mia, her stepbrother and stepsister, were just playing rough. They didn't mean it. I let it go that night, but something felt wrong. The next weekend, she begged not to go to her dad's, said she had a stomach ache, then a headache, then her legs hurt. I drove her there anyway because that's what the custody agreement said. When I picked her up Sunday night, she was missing chunks of hair, just gone, like someone had taken scissors to it. She said she did it herself because she wanted a new style, but her hands were shaking, and she went straight to bed without dinner. I called my ex-husband Colin that night. He laughed, actually laughed, and said kids will be kids. His new wife Denise got on the phone and said Sophie was being dramatic for attention, that she was jealous of Ethan and Mia because they were better adjusted. Maybe if I weren't so overprotective, Sophie would know how to handle herself. They suggested I get her therapy for her obvious behavioral issues. Next Friday, I did something I'd never done before. I followed them, parked down the street from Colin's house, and waited. Through the window, I could see Sophie sitting alone on the floor while Ethan, who was 12, and Mia, who was 10, sat on the couch. They were throwing things at her. Popcorn, then pillows, then what looked like toys. She just sat there taking it. Colin was in the kitchen making dinner. Denise was on her phone. Neither of them even looked up. I wanted to storm in right then, but I knew they'd just deny it, say I was the crazy ex-wife. So I went home and made a plan. I spent the week making calls, found out some interesting things about Denise's past. Turns out she'd been fired from her teaching job 3 years ago for hitting a student. The school district buried it with a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. But I knew someone who worked in the district office. I also discovered Colin had been claiming Sophie on his taxes, even though I had primary custody and paid for everything. 5 years of fraudulent returns adding up to about $30,000 in illegal deductions. The next Sunday, when I picked Sophie up, she had a black eye. A black eye. She said she ran into a door, but Ethan was smirking behind her and Mia was giggling. Colin shrugged and said she needed to watch where she was going. Denise said maybe Sophie needed glasses since she was so clumsy lately. That's when I decided they needed to meet the real me. I asked Colin and Denise to meet me at a restaurant that Thursday to discuss Sophie's behavior. Said I was ready to admit they were right and I needed their help. They showed up 20 minutes late, Denise complaining about having to miss Ethan's basketball practice. Colin ordered the most expensive wine on the menu. They spent 10 minutes telling me everything wrong with my parenting. How Sophie was weak because I babied her. How she needed to learn to stand up for herself. How their kids were just being normal siblings and Sophie was too sensitive. I let them talk, let them feel superior. Then I pulled out my phone. Before we continue, I want to show you both something interesting. I showed them the email from the IRS about the tax fraud investigation I'd reported. Colin's face went white. Then I showed them the settlement agreement from Denise's old school district that my friend had accidentally left on my doorstep. Denise started stammering about privacy laws. Here's what's going to happen, I said, keeping my voice calm while they sat there frozen. Colin, you're going to sign over full custody to me today. No visitation until Sophie asks for it herself. Denise, you're going to keep your kids away from my daughter permanently. If either of you contacts her, if your kids come near her at school, if I even hear that you've mentioned her name, these documents go to everyone. The IRS, the school board where Denise just got hired, Colin's boss, who probably wouldn't love employing a tax cheat. Colin tried to argue, but I stood up. My lawyer has the paperwork ready. Sign it by tomorrow or I'll make the calls tonight. Denise was crying, mascara running down her face, saying I couldn't do this. Colin's hands were shaking as he reached for the wine. I left them with the check. Colin signed the papers that night. Sophie hasn't been back there in 3 months. She's in therapy now, with a good therapist who's helping her heal. Her hair grew back, the bruises faded. Last week she told me she feels safe again, and that's all that ever mattered.